We're on. All right, welcome to our workshop. Town of Ocean Ridge. The November 3rd, 2025, 2 o'clock. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Ayala, Commissioner Hutchins, Commissioner Cassidy, Vice Mayor Cos,
Here.
and Mayor Pugh.
Here. All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag. States of America. And to the republic for which it stands. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Public comment? Hearing none. Close that. Go right to the workshop agenda items.
Thank you, Mayor. Kelly, you're okay to hear me on this? Okay, great. All right, so from your staff that's here today, it's myself, your town manager. I also have our Public Works Supervisor, Mr. Armstrong here, and of course, Chief of Police is here. And then to my left is our consultant who handles our financing, Holly Bath, and Kelly is on the DJ over there. Making sure that we are getting our minutes recorded. So again, for the record, we have microphones that are placed on our table and we should be able to get picked up like this. So my apologies for any future person who doesn't hear us well, but we think we're accommodating for the minutes very well. Today's agenda is very quick, but it needs to happen in order to give you a brief update on projects that are going very well. And if it's okay with you, what I'd like to do for the first half is basically run through these projects very quickly. I'm not gonna wait for questions if it's okay with you, and then move quickly into the finance part. And at that time, I'm going to look to Commissioner Alla to share some insight that he has shared with me, that he is offering a tool for Holly and I to use, and I want him to share with you where it came from and offer it any time that you need to get your questions answered on that issue. And then at that point, if you like, we can go back to answering any questions you have from the beginning on any projects or any specifics, if that works for you for today's agenda. How's that? Good. All right. So this is November. We are starting with our new fiscal year, and it's an appropriate time to say, hey, what's going on and where are we going? So that's what we're doing today. So on the overhead, you'll see in just a second what's happening now, and these are just brief slides to keep us current. And what's happening now is I want to give you an update on your top 4 priorities from the capital projects that we have. And those priorities that you identified are Harbor Drive North drainage, the town seawall on Hudson Ave, phase 2 modernization of pipes, and phase 4 modernization of pipes. So great news on number 1, which is Harbor Drive North drainage. As of this morning, we have an update, and that is that the Corps of Engineers has given us their permit. So that's a big thumbs up. And we have applied for the permit for South Florida Water Management District. They have come back with comments, not unusual, and the comments have to be answered within 90 days. And so the Ingenuity team, your engineers, they will look to answer these comments and get them done by probably beginning of December. And that cutoff date is, I believe, December 19th, but they'll get it.
Judy, do those before.
I will review them this time, before they go. This will be my first project with them. And, but the comments seem within line, so it doesn't seem like it's going to be out of line. The outstanding piece that we have is still continuing the conversation with finalizing the easement between the one home. We do have the other easement on Harbor Drive North. So we're 50% of the way there. And I spoke with our attorney this morning, Christy, and we should be bringing you some new resolution at our December meeting for that. So we're moving through all that quickly. For your added information, I just gave you a timeline on the priority number 1 on your first 11 by 17 page there. Your second one is the town seawall on Hudson Avenue. So we have not gone out for bid for the design build that we spoke about yet. And the reason we haven't gone out yet is because we are in the final stages of potentially being granted for a grant. And our local mitigation committee has ranked that project number 11 in 2024 and 25. And now in the new fiscal year, it was ranked number 12. Still a good ranking. That information, along with a letter of support from the Local Mitigation Strategy Committee, was sent to the state, and they are in receipt of it and have let me know that if they have any further questions, they'll reach out. So we're on pause. And the reason we're on pause is with this particular grant, you can't do anything until you get the thumbs up. So once we receive the contract and sign the contract with the state, then we can move forward with going out to bid for the design build. If we do it beforehand, then we negate any opportunity we have for the grant itself. So a little timeline that I put in my head and with the stakeholders that I'm working with is February. And February seems to be a reasonable time to wait to hear back from these individuals. And if not, then we'll make another phone call. I probably will make that phone call with Commissioner Cassidy, if the commission is okay with it, to the state, to make sure that we are either very, very close, and if it seems like we're too far, at that point, we'll probably move forward without the grant. We do have the money budgeted for it. We can pay for it, but if, you know, my thought was, if somebody's gonna give us $500,000 to go towards it, we want that money,
Absolutely.
right? So we want to give them till at least the end of what they consider to be spring, is the way I see it. So that's the update on the seawall.
And what's the timeline for that?
We want it as soon as possible.
So you figure by next summer or?
I think by summer, we need to be at least out to RFP, at
Okay.
least, yeah. Ideally, you know, in the beginning of this fiscal year, I want it to be in construction by summer.
When does the state make its decision?
Well, usually end of spring into summer, right?
Is it with the, you mean?
The HML is the HLMB.
grant?
Yes.
Yeah,
DEM,
so it's
yeah,
it's through DEP, it's not the state, it's not like the legislature.
Right.
When do they make their decision? We
They're
would-
all
we would
different.
be able to
they're all
make-
different, so that's why
Yeah.
when I asked, they said, you know, I asked one of the gentlemen that works up there, I said, I'm not gonna hold you to it, but he had said probably January, February, so I'm telling you all February, hoping that I'm giving myself some cushion. And really, it's a pretty simple project, you know, it's a seawall, and it's a design build, so they haven't had any questions yet, so now I think it's just a matter of them deciding whether our project is more beneficial to a larger amount of people than somebody else's. But that's why that local mitigation group that comes together in Palm Beach County and in every county, that's why that group is so important, because they're the ones that make those recommendations to the state. State agencies
Who
don't
are,
tell us.
what is that committee comprised of? Like, who said, is it county commissioners and what is it?
No, it's all staff. It's county staff typically that runs it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that they're employed by the county, and then every municipality sends people.
Mhm.
And
Like
so,
Billy's gone before, right?
yeah, Billy's gone, and then I've been the one that's been attending.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's been productive. They have, new leadership. And turns out I've been familiar and know some of these new leaders from way back. They were former Palm Beach County firefighters and, chiefs. And so now they're in these roles. So I do feel very confident that they have money set aside for us. It's just a matter of timing, whether we want to wait. I'll bring it back if you like, once that, you know, if it seems like it's up in the air still, we can talk about it on a one-on-one when we're going around. We don't, I mean, at this point, you know, I think it's the right move to wait. Okay, so the phase 2 modernization of pipes, the update there is that we are over 30% on the design, actually, the design build on that actually is done. Phase 2 is this part that's in front of Town Hall. And design portion is complete, and now we are waiting, permitting. And the permitting's been submitted, and then we can move into construction. Timeline on that is still on time, on budget. And we're looking at end of spring, going into summer before we start any construction. Modernization of pipe for phase 4, that's the part that you were talking about, Commissioner Cassidy, before we started our meeting. And that is also on a 30% completion for design. We had our update. I sent you all a summary of the update recently for that meeting. And so we are on budget, on time right now, for phase 4. And that is that portion. Go to the next page.
Is that generator still on station?
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. And then we can go to the next page. Next slide. All right, so on this slide here, number 5 is Town Hall and the Police Department hardening. We are in the bidding process there. As you know, we received the grant for $250,000, and we just started the process to find someone to redo our roof. So far, it looks like roof bids are in the range of 300 to 400,000, which was more than I anticipated, actually. And then number 7 is the generator replacement on Tropical. The order for that replacement is in process, and we are looking at a January delivery time at this point. Turning to the next page. Number 6, I wanted to bring your attention to on this slide, and it says title retaining walls and seawalls for Hudson Avenue. This is something I want to review with you. It's a need to review further in the future. And this is a concept at this point, but you know where Hudson Avenue is, and it runs east and west, and at the end of, on the west side is where we want the seawall. We do have a concern, your staff, that on the north side where the FDOT ponding is, retention pond, that water tends to come from that area. You know, that you've been dealing with that for years and years. And I think that that will continue regardless, just because we're so tidal now, and with king tides being so high. We do see some homeowners on Hudson that on the north side that have put in tidal walls, basically smaller seawalls behind their homes. And it has done well to hold water back. And I think there's an opportunity for us to discuss running a seawall, a tidal wall on the easement that we currently have back there to hold the water back so that we're not continuously. Yeah, it may probably would look to connect to those areas. But even, you know, at this point, we're relying on a berm, and the berm continues to break, and we have to go back in and ask them to refill it. So it's something to consider in the future, and I think we'll talk about that some more.
And that's what it's called. Do they have any?
On the north side or that?
No, on the north side.
No.
They're south side. They're kind of in the tree.
Yeah, they're done.
Is that the one making the weird noise? Sounds like a helicopter. Here?
One might be moving. No, okay. So for visual purposes, if you think about the water coming in now and it's tidal from the north, as it goes through the areas from the north going into the south, and it hits Hudson and then goes west on Hudson down and then goes out into the intercoastal. Well, if a seawall is there, our concern is that it'll go down to the seawall and sit.
But there are catch basins along the north side of Hudson there that would catch that before it would. I mean, usually when the water's down there, it's coming from intercoastal.
Well, I think it comes from the intercoastal, then it also comes up from the middle where she's talking about.
That's groundwater, right?
No, it's
running from the mangroves to the north onto Hudson. Remember Bertino was his name?
I mean, it only happens like around, king tide and those times, but it's.
What are you doing with 36-inch valve, 50 valve? Fix it yet? Clean it? Really? That's what flooded the street.
The valve on
There's a
Harbor,
valve that
on Hudson?
connects the Street. 36-inch pipe.
Street drains on Ocean or on Hudson?
Drains in the intercoastal, whole Ocean Ave,
Along by the
Yep.
bridge, yeah.
all those, you see the water coming up in there, that's coming.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that comes back over.
Yeah, as that connects, it goes all back.
Oh,
comes
comes
back
back over? Yeah.
So there's a couple things going on.
Build the flows.
But FDOT.
Where's the
supposed to-
36 incher?
It's out there on the north side.
This is what Betty's been complaining about, right? Because it just bubbles up from those.
Yeah, it's a big.
And it's all
big
because
thing.
what the flat valves are missing or?
I haven't seen it, I haven't. Didn't get my scuba gear on.
Yeah.
No, but I said when it's really low tide, actually. We haven't had some. I think. Floodgates been open.
Again, it's a concept that we'll discuss and vet some more in the future, but it was definitely worth having on the list of concerns for resiliency. We think it just partners and complements the seawall.
Are they gonna vote that? Oh, no.
You are breaking the rules. We were not gonna ask questions.
I know, cause one side looks really good, the other side looks like.
FDOT? We'll get with James again and see. Yeah. Write that too. All right, then, number 9 that I have on this list, we don't, but it's just,
Okay.
it's just up there for you to refer as we're walking through it, but I'll get it for you. So this is a working list that I do.
Sitting in the front row at that.
2 more items just that are under a need to review, and so I think that it's a future workshop where we speak about more resiliency issues. But road paving, repaving, we've had that in the list on your capital in the past, and we've just skipped that in the last couple of years. So I'd like to get back to that. And then property acquisition, and again, for continuation of resiliency issues, it's just making sure we're getting the properties. So those are items that I think that are, if you would say in the parking lot, if we had a little post-it area here, we'd write it and come back to it in a future workshop and find out what you think as far as putting it on the priority list. Those are the things your staff thinks are
Is that
important
old?
for.
Chart, I don't even know, it's whole chart. It's not about paving, A, B, C, D.
Yes, I have that.
I don't think that's valid.
So yes, in 2017, you had a chart and you had paving done in 2017. You revisited it again in 2022. I think you repaved 1 road in 2022 at that time off of that list. And so that list is information Commissioner Alla and I took a look at as well for purposes of forecasting. It's still pretty valid. And what I've done is I've given that checklist to some officers. So as they're making their passes through the town, they have a worksheet that they're filling out for me. And then we can do a pass through. I'm happy to ride through the town and do a final with anyone here as we get to a top 10 list. I think this year we should get to a top 10 list.
But not do 10.
No, just a top 10 list to work through for the next couple of years.
Nightmare. Need to be done in the next 3 years or so. That's gonna be a nightmare.
It is on the list. Was there a
Can you
portion of it,
Shit.
was done in?
Pothole.
All right.
Walk at your own risk.
We do have a big pothole on Hudson, by the way, when you guys are driving. It's just gotten worse and worse. It's almost like it's a sinkhole or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
We'll take a look at that. Right.
Just west of-
And if you want to take a look, I do have the most recent 2022 list for your roads that need to be repaid. Okay. All right. So that's what's happening now. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to transition into what's happening next, and that would be under our finance. So taking a look, you have a couple of pieces of paper on your desk. If you, on your 8.5 by 11 is a list of items that are considered presumptions, assumptions and inputs.
Maybe before you start looking at those. Excited or. We talked about this back in September, October, about the idea of perhaps us looking at things on a little more monthly basis. I feel like, I've only been on the commission for 2 years, so I felt like the first year of the budget process was clunky, disastrous endeavor. This year, I thought with Michelle getting involved and we've gotten some more financial discipline in our practices, I felt like it went very smoothly. I thought that was good. So that's good. We're looking at it year by year now, a good basis. I think kind of the best organizations look at the horizon and try to project out. So you just saw all the different things that we're projecting for capital, and it adds up to a really big number over the next several years. And there's a few things that aren't even on them. So what I suggested is that we take a look at some type of scenario, some modeling, to see, what might things look like over the next 10 years. So should we be worried? Should we be concerned? Do we have enough money coming from our expected tax collections to fund all of these capital expenses? Or do we need to start thinking about other things like, bond issue or loans or getting grants or appropriations like Carolyn's been working on, Michelle? But right now we kind of don't know. We just wait every year to see what everything looks like and we hope real hard. And so what I did is I put together, and this is just the first pass. So really don't look at the numbers and say, oh, problems or whatever. Because
You're
this is
talking this year.
Yeah. What I've done is I've put together a 10-year model. First of all, budgeting is not rocket science. You can look at all the different ingredients and all the different inputs. There's goes intos and there's goes outits. It's the way it was always thought for me. You got the cost, you got the revenue coming in, and you got the stuff going out. And whatever the difference is at the end is either your profit or loss. Well, for our purposes, we don't have a profit or loss, but we have a change in surplus or a decrement to our surplus. So what I've done is I've taken our initial starting points, and that's on this sheet called assumptions. I just, and this model will get more sophisticated. This is the first pass. And so far, it's just kind of me, Excel, and some weekends, and then a little bit of Chat GPT, which is more frustrating than it is ultra trust. Working on putting together a 10-year projection. So what I did is I put together kind of a rough skeleton of what a budget would look like, starting with where our budget is this year. And then I just made some assumptions. I pulled them out of the air. I made some assumptions around, as you can see there, around how to think about what's going to happen in the future. So what kind of interest are we going to earn on our reserves? I put 12.75%. That's what's built in. It's a little trickier around what happens to our revenue going forward, our ad valorem revenue. Because that's based on our mill rate. So that's an assumption held against versus this model. But also it's a function of a market value, the assessed value of homes, but also the percentage of homes that are homestead, because if they're homesteaded, there's a cap how much it can go up. So if you look at the compound annual growth rate of our revenues over the last 9 years, it comes out, I think, I just did calculation, I think it's like 9%. Last year, in Michelle's.
Backtrack, 9.5%.
9.7 for over like 9 years old. Oh, is it in there? Is that actually?
That's what I'm gross.
What's the ad valorem growth decrement?
No, that's that's for the year. That's just for 1 year. This year they were 9.7%.
But,
Well, we assume 9.7 for the coming year. But if you look at it for the last 9 years, it went up 7.6, 8, 5.6, 11.7, 4.8, 4.4, 18.2, 12.3, 10, 9.7 is what we've got in the budget for this year. I just went through it and did a kind of a compound annual growth rate. And it comes out to like 9.4%. But I didn't want to project forward at 9.4% because I think that's way too optimistic and not likely to happen. So shockingly to me, I think the statistic, Michelle, and I looked into this, only 40% of our homes are homestead.
Yeah.
Isn't that surprising? Anyway, I made the assumption that that isn't going to keep happening, that that's just kind of a lucky financially for us. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. The next version of this model will allow us to decide what percentage of the homes are homesteaded every year and have that, we can change that every year if we want to. And then we'll make an assumption about what the market value changes. For the first pass on this model, what I did is I said, look, this year we assume 9.7%. The average has been 9.4%. I said, let's take it down 1% each year. Let's assume that people start homesteading more. And also let's assume that maybe prices aren't going up as much. But you can't just look at what's happening to overall prices. Because what matters is what happens to homes in our community. They sell, turnover. So there's just a lot of, it's really hard to make an assumption. So I made kind of a broad assumption. You can see in the model, I said, start at 9.7, model takes it down 1% every year until it gets to 5 and then it flattens. I assumed that we're never going to get to 100% homestead. And 3%, I think, is the cap once you lose it. So I assume.
To answer your question,
Yeah, sure.
because to get a homestead exemption, this has to be primary residence, correct? Which means you live here all year round.
Yeah, well, or at least you make that claim.
You make that claim.
So listen, I made this assumption here, and we might decide, let's assume it's always 40%. I'm fine with that. I'm not trying to say that the assumptions I used are the right ones. I'm just describing to you how many results look like, and you can change everything.
back this year, you have seen a time in a 9% growth a year, 8%.
I'm
Plus,
taking it down a bit.
with the taking it down, because it's not, I agree, it's not gonna continue to increase at 10% every year.
Yeah.
Plus adding in X% more homesteads.
Well,
That's how you end up.
that's implicit in what I did. I don't have it explicitly modeling that. What I did is I said, I'm going to assume market increases are going to drop.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, I'm also think that more of our homeowners it'll go from 40 to 50 or 70 or something. I haven't even had a chance to look at what the average community around here has in terms of homestead. Maybe it's 40%, maybe it's 50%. That would be a surprise. But what I said is putting all that in the basket, I'm going to assume that it drops down and levels off at 5%. So it goes 9.78, 6, 7.6. That levels off at 5. Just for just for projection purposes.
But
Um,
you're basically, what you've done is we can take any what ifs
Yes.
and put it in and see
Yeah.
what our,
What we can't do yet, because I didn't have enough time to make the model this sophisticated, is we can't say, well, let's assume homesteading goes up 10% a year. Let's assume market value changes are 8% next year, 9% the year after that. The next version of the model will let us do that. Right now, all you can do is just say, let's just assume a number taking into account all those factors for the next couple of years is like what I did. But we can make that change, and I will make that change. It's enough time to get done. So that's, then for the rest of the revenue items, so ad valorem is a portion of our revenue, but it's not all of it. So we've got all these other revenue items that I just put in there, and we can build in assumptions on that growing. I think in the model right now, I didn't even have those grow. So it's conservative from that perspective. On the expense side, I separated it into 2 buckets. We can put them into 15 buckets if we want to. But again, I was just trying to get a sense of, I wanted you guys to see how this model looks and then decide if you see fast. I split it into salary and benefit expenses, and then other operating expenses, kind of the cost of keeping the lights on for the town. And you can see that's just right out of the budget. It's a 4.8 million salary and benefits, and other expenses at 5.568. And then I let us make separate assumptions on those. So I've got personnel costs going up 5%. Other costs going up at 3%. Again, change those. I put in debt service at 330,000. Right now, this model carries it all the way through. Future version of the model will leave that off and put more in if we decide.
well, it goes to zero.
I
understand.
changed that portion
Yes.
just for my
Yeah.
discussion when we're done with yours. Yeah,
That'll change.
right.
Just for, it's a small. And then what I did is I loaded into this model. I said, let's assume that we continue to spend $2 million in capital a year. Then the next version of the model will let us change that by year if we want to. But I said, we kind of got up to, well, this year is extraordinary because we're spending 4 because we took some last year in reserves. But 2 million was kind of our, what we wanted to spend, and then we had to catch up for some other stuff. So this model has got built in $2 million of capital expense per year. And then I just let the model run. And I said, anything each year that either is, once we take our expenses minus 2 million of capital and take that away from the revenues, whatever is left over, if it's negative, it decrements our fund balance. And if it's positive, fund balance goes up. And what I've done is I've identified it as model as that's additional. I call that additional surplus number. That would be what would be available for additional capital expense. On the theory that we kind of like our surplus to stay the same, our fund balance to stay about where it is. So that's the purpose of the model. I've spent some time kicking the tires. I think it works, but it might not. So you guys can all get your calculators out and take a look at it if you want to. I didn't really want to circulate this yet, but it's kind of hard to talk about it if we can't look at something. So this is a little bit not ready for prime time yet because I've still been working on it. But I think most of the math works on it. You've had a chance to look at it. So
I do. I think it's a very good tool. I think that we can plug and play and really have a better idea of what 10 years out looks like. And it's not arbitrary. It really is, speaks to what the
And what
history is
what
and
this shows you, and I kind of had a sense when I came on commission, that we're kind of near an inflection point where property values were going up and the level where if we kept the millage rate the same. We used to have to kind of scrape to make ends meet in the earlier years before I came on commission. And it felt like we were getting to the point where we were probably going to have enough tax revenue to make ends meet and have a little bit left to pay for some capital. But knowing that we've got all these water pipes that have to be replaced and other stuff down the road that we might have to do, I didn't know how big a number might be available in terms of surplus going forward. So I wanted to kind of get a sense of big problem, a small problem, or no problem. And that's what this kind of helps us begin to answer. So that's the purpose of the model. We've got to really talk. I wanted to get a sense from you guys about the assumptions, like what you, as a group, how you feel comfortable doing scenario planning. What we should probably do is box it with some really conservative assumptions and then also some bad case assumptions and see what it looks like in terms of the surplus. And I think it's probably going to have wild swings based on the assumptions. But you can see if we run this model, it shows in a few years we start generating, more than $2 million of additional capital to be available in years. if you look at Michelle's list of all the stuff we have to spend, it's not really reason to get excited because we got plenty of things to spend that money on. But it also might give us some, sense that how much we would have to go up for in terms of getting, appropriations or for funds or, and also if anybody starts talking about, should we change our millage rate? The real discussion we might decide is, should we increase the millage rate, not to reduce it? I'm not telegraphing any of that. We don't even know yet. It's been built houses. But there's the risk that if you don't have an analysis like this, you could have a year where you end up having a bit of a surplus and you just reduce the millage rate and then you kick yourself the next year because you really needed a lot more in the. So anyway, this is what we've got so far. The assumptions, the things that I'm going to be changing is debt service, so that we can drop that off. That's more sophisticated modeling of the homestead and the market rates. Allow all of the assumptions to vary by year. Make it so that we can actually vary the capital expense by right now. I'd like to make it so we can vary the interest rate assumption on balance because, I don't know what's going to happen. We might make some assumptions about that. We also need to put in there a discount based on early tax payments. I don't think I have anything in there right now, but for budget purposes, I think these 4%, don't we assume that everybody pays right when they can?
Yeah,
Just
we
to
do.
say.
Make that assumption.
So anyway, those are the enhancements I'm thinking of, and I'm open for you guys with any other changes you want to make. The page that I gave you has the input items and the assumptions that the model's built on right now. So anyway, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a primer on what I'm looking at here. Again, it's not really ready for prime time yet, but it will be pretty soon so that we can use it for modeling purposes.
State will have to take into consideration, pay close attention to what the state is doing too, as on taxes. Because there are a lot of
Sure.
bills floating
Yeah.
around right now. Depending on what kind of, it's gonna just be a moving target, right? For vote this year, so late.
I can't move.
A lot of things can change.
And, the only thing for sure about a model like this is that
That
it's
one's
wrong, I mean, you're making a bunch of assumptions and they're not all gonna come true.
Right.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to get some sensitivity analysis to figure out, hey, things look generally pretty good. They're not pretty good. And what kind of actions can you take to make things look better?
So,
As we go.
so over 10 years, can you make a graph?
Yeah.
Where you're anticipating movement and then.
Yeah, and
then
it would just be the
have a
input
high
items from this.
assumption on top, low assumption on bottom.
Absolutely. I haven't done that yet, but that's pretty simple to just have it be fed directly from this.
And how often can the information be updated?
Well, it can be updated as often as we have input changes, so, we would do it at least annually based on the changes budget items, because we do the budget every year. And what I've done is then use that as a launching point for projecting into the future. I suppose if something happened mid-year that made us think the world was changing in an important way, then we'd have the ability to adjust our scenario planning just to see, wow, what does that do to us? If we thought interest rates are going to drop to, 2% again, I wish, I would change this model and it would have a material impact because we earn, 5, 6, 700,000 1 year. So, it would take $250,000 out of it. But whatever else, if the market crashes on home values, that would adjust this, and that would be one of the scenario plans we would run. And that'll have a very different outcome than this, because this is inflated. Anyway, so it's a useful tool, I think. Yeah,
Looks really.
Yeah, thank you.
sure. So, anybody have any immediate input on the assumptions, or would you rather just kind of reflect on it a bit and have the back? How you feel about it? We'll have the ability, once I update the model, to sit down.
But when you came up with the increases, was that based on historic fact or?
Yeah, like I said, for the increases in the property value, I looked at what it's been over the last 10 years. I also I just can't imagine that property prices can keep going up at the same level. So I put a bit of judgment into it that way. So I had it scaling down to 5%. I think you and I talked about that.
Yeah.
But again, that's just my first pass at it.
So, I'm sorry, you finished. You said 9.4%, over 10 years, the average annual increase was 9.4%.
It's in Michelle's document.
Doesn't that seem?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, that's.
It was 18%, in 2023, it was 18%, 24. It's 12.3%, 5%. 11.7 and 20, and we had 7.6 and 7.8%. There were only five, there was a 5.6, 4.8, 4.4, whatever it was.
So it was a COVID burst. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Isn't it 10% a
Yeah,
year?
but Ocean Ridge has always been low.
Yeah.
Been undervalued.
Yeah.
Correct. And it's been discovered.
Yeah, and what you see is, Palm Beach has gotten so stratospheric that now you've got, people going to Manila, Delaware,
Yeah.
here.
And it's going the other way, this one.
Yeah.
So it all meets in the middle, Ocean Ridge.
So I don't have a crystal ball, but, we can, the beauty of this is that we can run it high, we can run it
Yeah.
low, and we can see,
I think we're gonna average.
and that might be right.
Well, if you go to 5%, that's an extra 500,000 a year in taxes.
Right.
So that ain't gonna cut it. You know what I mean? Right? You're at 10 million, ad valorem, and it's 5%. We need more than 500,000 increase a year.
Okay, so this is the model that we'll kind of mess around with, and that'll help inform us as we're going into budgeting season, thinking about capital expenditures.
And I can bring my notes on what, different scenarios that are being talked about.
Let's
here.
see.
They'll-
Thank you. As we are thinking about 10 years out, there are some things I wanted to bring up. One is that this current CFO of the state of Florida is visiting some of the larger cities and doing what he's considering to be somewhat of a review or an audit. And so he's been to Jacksonville. He's been to a lot of what people are saying are the blue cities, a lot of the Democratic cities. And his formula or his methodology is different because really all he's calculating is what people are bringing in on their ad valorem taxes. He's using population as a multiplier and as far as the growth. And for our purposes, we would really not be able to do well if we got audited by him because our population doesn't really grow, And
Didn't they just discovered, I think it was Miami or $2 billion missing revenue they discovered through this investigation.
so
$2 billion of taxpayer money.
yeah, that's the messaging that they're wanting to get out there. But truly, I'll send you a link to a good review on it. But truly, all that's happening is the same thing that the commissioner just did. They just did some quick math, and it's anything over the original operating expenses is considered the word that's used as surplus. And so this particular person is walking around and saying they had $2.8 million that just disappeared.
Yeah.
That's not true. He doesn't speak to what they did spend it on. He's just saying it should have been given back to the taxpayers. It shouldn't have been used. But the state itself is the one, they give us unfunded mandates all the time, especially around resiliency issues. So cities everywhere are spending money on the right things, but he didn't go into what they did spend the money on. He just said, here's a block of money that shouldn't have been there. And it's kind of like dealing with statistics. Statistics can tell whatever story you want. Yes. And so they're just taking this and they're doing, this minus that equals this. And so I actually played over the weekend also with ChatGPT looking at the population growth if we considered Boynton Beach as an alternative, since Boynton Beach does impact us and their population does impact us. And what it looks like if you start to create a multiplier, say we consider 5% of their population impacts the services that we have to give, policing, with our fire rescue department as well, that we contract, anything that we have to touch when residents that are not ours demand services. And once we added that in, then we were well within and, coming way under what the CFO was looking for. So for long-term.
Being ready for that kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll send you what I created on it, but I think that's a very high level view of how well you guys have done as a commission in making sure that you're looking long-term and approaching the issues that are needed right now. But there were years in the past, before this commission where I hear people saying that we're going into the reserves. We're not going into the reserves right now, but in years past, yes, you can see a history where reserves had to be touched. But at this point in time, well done on
getting the interest on the high yield interest on making sure that the money that you have set aside is set aside in the right way. So almost $1 million so far. And that's not money that's just sitting there, but it's money that can be allocated and has been allocated for your projects that are in the process. But as you know, government takes time with all the permitting with the different agencies. And so while we're waiting, that money is earning interest. And so we'll continue to do that. The other assumption that we'll look at here is, you know, we're looking at the additional capital projects as around $2 million. You know, that $2 million just doesn't go as far as it used to. That's typically one project now. And in the past, you may have gotten more than that. So as we look at, you know, at this model, $2 million, you know, I'm really looking at the additional opportunity to gain more money to get more resiliency done. And so what I'd like to see, check your temperature on, and we're doing well on time right now, it's 2:40. I'd like to check your temperature on going back to the state revolving fund and seeing if we could qualify for a loan for resiliency issues, specifically for the clean water. So with the water mains, we're 50% done. But this opportunity to allow our money to stay earning money and make sure that we're adhering to our policy of 50% set aside for emergency issues.
Those low interest ones or interest ones?
They're not no interest. They used to be 2%. I think right now they're running around 3%.
So, I mean,
It's a win.
there's a big,
And really, when you take a look at what 10 years out looks like, if you take a look at this model alone, we're done paying the current loan for the town hall in 2027.
We
It will,
just finished the other one.
yes, sir. Yeah, so we've,
600,000.
you're right.
so that means in this model, our projection. $2 or $3 million.
So it'll take us that long to find out and if we can qualify and then get awarded a loan. So if we start now with doing the paperwork and submitting the business plan as we would need to, we might be ready by what we have here, year 3, which would be the 2028 timeline. And at that point in time, we could knock out a bunch of projects, keeping the money where it needs to be for long-term investment and pull down as necessary until we have as much as we can, and then you pay it off, just like you've done in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But so we have a pay-as-you-go model right now, but allowing me to take this next year to work with Holly and to work with, you know, our consulting groups to make sure and probably touch you again if I can, Commissioner, on getting this business plan together and see if we qualify. In the Coastal Star, I will tell you, I noticed that one of the other nearby towns did not get the money that they thought they were going to get. I think it was Briny Breezes through the state revolving loan. And that I don't know why. So that may have just been that they didn't give the business plan that they were looking for. So getting the right information over is important. I do think we have a great case in order to be able to get
So
a loan.
You need a consensus? Yes, please, Michelle.
I need a thumbs up. We can't vote because it's a workshop, but you can give me a thumbs up on bringing you back a resolution. And then at our December meeting, I'll have a resolution on there. You like it? Okay, because the process itself, like I said, is timely, but the first step of the process is I have to prove to that agency that the commission is in favor of us investigating and moving forward. And so the resolution would then show that you're in favor. Exactly. It's a permission for us to do the work to get there. And then we will start with working with that agency, and they have workshops that we would have to attend virtually, of course, and submit certain documents like this, our projections and then our financials. And so, it's a process, but I'd love to get started. I think it's a smart thing to do because if we get the information back, let's just say we get some random 7-8% interest rate and you say, no, it's not worth it. We can get something better. Then we don't have to take it.
And the only cost associated with going for it is staff time.
Correct.
And Michelle, when we're making our case, it's a competitive process. We hate to say that, but we're competing against other towns and stuff.
Yes.
Based on the research I did, maybe you have better research than this. The best I could find is that only 15% of towns even do 10-year capital plan, and only 6% do 10-year financial plan. So my point is, our case should be strong that we've got good financial discipline. Careful stewards of, money
You're
by
right.
being sophisticated. So,
You're right. Most towns that do the 5-year planning and are performing well can, if they went out to, get a bond rating, they, typically come in with a AA. The AAAs are the ones that are doing the 10-year planning, 10-year financial planning. I would love to know what a rating would be. I think that this town would get a very strong rating. But, I don't know that we need to do that right now. That costs money to get a rating, so we wouldn't need to do it right now. But yeah, I think it would be favorable and I think it's the right thing to do. So thank you for the thumbs up and we'll have a resolution then for you in December. Other thoughts I want you to know about in case you have these talking points with residents, but also to consider for future. As conversations happen at the state level that are out of our control, for instance, taking away ad valorem taxes, there are things that this town has not taken full advantage of, and I call them user fees. So things like our communication services tax, that's the tax that's on all of your cell phone bills. You all are only running about 2% and you didn't go to the max. There's money to be had there because that goes on everybody's internet bills and it comes on everybody's, mobile tax units. And so I know it's a tax because it has the word tax in it, but it's not an ad valorem tax and it's a user tax for anybody that's in your zip code, your area, your town. So maybe even homeowners, you don't have to be a homeowner to be able to get taxed on that.
How many different?
We have that one and there was another one and I can't. Is there something you can think of there other than impact fees? We don't have impact fees.
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
Tend to talk to our commissioner about
yeah, having some come back
Okay,
into
so-
this.
things.
Yeah. I could put together a list of stormwater fees. We do have franchise fees, but we don't know how well negotiated the franchise fees are. I believe, and utility taxes. And so like I said, stormwater, opportunities for stormwater fees. That's a big one for here because there's so many projects that are not getting done in the town simply because they need to get done, but they just don't rank as high. So things like, good for instance is your Coconut right here behind us. That road has an opportunity to really be fixed. So you have this great curb and gutter kind of look to it, but it doesn't really serve the purpose it was supposed to serve as far as collecting the water and moving the water. And the majority of your houses here on Coconut are underwater on every single king tide. And the difference between a location like that and some others is that it's both the front yard and the backyard. And so that's scary when you're a homeowner and you're seeing the water come in front and back. So I do think that that's a special project. If the commission wanted to attack projects as needed or as the homeowners come in and tell you they want them attacked, you could set up MSTUs, so municipal service taxing units, where you can just tax like a neighborhood to get that taken care of. And then that's user fee based, meaning the only ones that are paying for that area are the people that live there.
You're talking about if worst
These
case
are just
scenario happened
options.
and it got rid of it. Taxes.
Exactly. Yes. How do we do it? How do we keep people from going underwater? Yeah.
I
So these
presume
are all
that-
just
I
user
presume that
fees.
that's- Effort. I mean, what would every-
There are a lot of bills out there and something's gonna happen.
there is-
Yeah. So, one of the things that Commissioner Cassie and I spoke about is with all of the conversation that's happening in Tallahassee, you just you can't do the math on every single option that they're throwing out there. So as staff, we're often just sitting and waiting. We're just waiting for them because we could do exercises and math all day long. But it could be going nowhere until they actually pass something. So right now, I think the strongest discussion and argument that I'm hearing is that they want to make the municipalities function with a high degree of the ad valorem taxes going towards public safety. So great news. That's pretty much all we do here.
It's the business.
Yeah, well, It's 40% of, for the police department, right? But then we also, I would have the argument that your building department is also public safety. It's the whole point of being regulated
They're
and,
not Including fire. They're
right,
That we,
just,
correct, correct. Yeah.
do our consultants have a point of view on like any of these, this legislation moving forward?
their advice has basically been, at this point, it's such a moving target. And these everything has come out of the House, but the Senate has not spoken about any of it yet. So it's just something we're watching.
It just seems impossible.
Well,
You would think,
I don't know how
you would
anything
One,
get
one
done
thing
in
I
the-
heard that did make sense was if you were 70 or older and a full-time resident,
I think 65.
I heard 70, which sounded to me like, okay, that's, because you're on a fixed income,
What
70
happens
plus,
if you're something like that?
you don't have,
Yeah, eliminating property tax.
if you're a full-time resident.
I think, that guy's running for mayor in the.
Yeah. One thing, I spoke to a couple senators in the last couple of years, and I wish that they would come up with a plan to help those homeowners that are helping their town with easements, drainage easements, for instance. So if you are kind enough to give a drainage easement, then I think that you should get an exemption. So just the quid pro quo here is if you give the town back the opportunity for us to drain our roads through your property, then you should get, whatever, $10,000 a year of an exemption. I think that helps our causes because there are some towns that are really just coming to an extreme and starting to pay for easements because it's becoming very, very difficult to get anything done.
Another one, that Marcy and I were talking about is that when we change the name of a property owner, like if you put it in a trust for your kids, that triggers a tax increase, right? Or if someone dies, like when Ted Rotona died, that happened to Lisa with her house on Hudson. And she fought it successfully, but maybe that is something that, that they could consider.
I think they recognized that as recently as it last year because I had to change mine and there's been no increase.
Actually, I assume that the impetus behind this type of push is that there's an assumption that towns are wasting money, that they're not good stewards of
Right.
the taxpayer's dollar. I mean, it seems like what they should be focusing on is ways of making sure that that's not happening rather than just draconian cuts. Because stuff's getting done that has to get done.
Yeah.
And if they feel like there are people, yes, schools, public sector, if they think that we're not doing it efficiently, they should give us ideas or help fund efficiencies or whatever, but just cutting off the ability to tax is kind of silly.
It is. 253.
All right, so
Time
go
check?
Circling back to where we started. You're gonna give us a list, some kind of list of where other tax places we could add or
Service.
increase the tax base or tax.
User fees. Let's call them user fees.
User.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
So I'll
the-
give you a list of user fees.
That's
It's just-
We know if something
Yeah.
like this happens. Some levers we can have. Yeah.
Right. As one thing goes down, is this enabling us to up? And quite frankly, I believe that the state will probably send those things out if they actually move forward with it. Just a handful of years ago, the Department of Revenue on their website was offering all of this type of information where they were putting the 10-year plans out for the state of Florida and had an actuarial working on what these things look like and then included information like impact fees and fee user-based taxing and how it would go up and down based on changes. And I would think that they'd do the same thing, and they didn't do that so far. So the fact that they haven't employed an actuarial yet makes me think that they're not to their final top choices. Once they employ somebody to do that work, then you can know that they're serious. So that is it for me. Did you find this helpful today for planning purposes? I would like to do another one in 6 months-ish, 6 to 8 months, if that's okay, where we again focus solely on where we're at and where we're going. And I think that these meetings as well, since they're solely focused on this, help us in our scoring methodology for when we go out for state revolving funds.
Maybe we should time adjust it.
Well,
The next-
remember, we start, now that you're with me, you start the budget in April. So that's most of the year. We'll do it. Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you for your time. Back to you, Mayor, on the.
Reeve?
Michelle, can you email me that paving list? I had it here still. Hey, in a question, yeah, say about this when you're talking about. Like, so, the nine point four. People, the next door neighbors, right? Got a Mitchell Homestead, they sold it 6 to a guy named Matt. So Max comes in and he's getting charged $350,000 a year.
He gets set to market.
Correct. Now, when you do these calculations, is that reflected?
That's what I'm saying. So my 9.7 going to 8.7, so 7% takes into account all the taxes. And then other people, you know what I'm saying? So it's not.
Max is a huge increase for the city.
I know. But what I'm saying is, there's also a lot of other people that can be any. So let's all of those things together. So.
So you didn't specifically say
And look at
20% of the homes sell.
This is what we could do is we could say, we'd have to make a number of assumptions. How many, what percentage? What's their six, and then what do we think? Increases.